Erev Tov Chavrim, I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live. Troubling things going on in Syria today. Israel has struck back on the Syrian side because of mortar shells falling inside of Israeli territory, inside the Golan Heights. And you cannot blame Prime Minister Netanyahu when he does retaliate for those types of weapons falling over inside of the Golan Heights there. But the troubling thing is that besides targeting the source of the mortar shells that have been spilling over into Israeli territory, and of course no injuries have been reported as a result of this, but Israel also struck the Syrian military, taking out 2 tanks as well. It's very obvious, even in the very, of course it's being reported on many news sources, RT says Israeli warplanes target 2 Syrian tanks over spillover cross-border fire, as is stated here. And this is on the IDF's Twitter page that they post, which I'm also on that same page. But the spokesperson said, in response to over 10 projectiles launched from Syria, the IAF, or Israeli Air Force, aircraft targeted origins of launches and 2 Syrian tanks. Now that's just troubling to me to see that our government is openly admitting that they are targeting not just the origin of where these shells are coming from, but also the Syrian military decided to take out 2 tanks as well. As I've stated before, it is obvious in Daniel's prophecy, Daniel, and let's just go there real quick. I'm actually on Isaiah 17 as of right now, but I want to just bring this back in again. Completely different than what anyone has ever even considered before in the prophecy of Daniel here, chapter 11. We're finding out in verse 40 there that the king of the south is an Israeli leader. And he is pushing with the king of the north. It says, Itanagach imo melech hanegiv. The Melech HaNagib. Some people try to say, oh, it's an Egyptian king. Well, all right, I appreciate other people having an opinion on this. Everyone is entitled to it. But does anybody know whether or not the Negev desert is inside of Egypt? No, it's not. And you can't say it's the word for south because it's not. It specifically speaks of the territory that was under Judah's control during the time that Israel was a nation originally. But he pushes with him. See, imo, not at him. Doesn't say anything of alo. It says imo. Pushes with him the king of the north, the Melech HaTzefon. And as I mentioned to you the other day, that Melech HaTzefon is a hidden king. It's also, Tzefon is the word for north, that is true, but it's also the word for hidden. Like the hidden hand behind the New World Order, or those that are leading NATO forces. And the other day I was mentioning the Pope of Rome and what he is doing and pushing for these things going on. But it's not to say that the Pope is actually the hidden hand or the king of the north in this case here. It could be even someone that runs the Pope of Rome. I have a feeling, as I've been stating all along, they're working on bringing about a false millennial reign to build a 3rd temple for their Antichrist that they will bring upon the scene to get the Israelis to accept some kind of peace deal that they're planning on doing with the Palestinians so that Rome can get a hold of Jerusalem's old city to have that as their own headquarters. Well, that's coming, guys. It's only a matter of time. But remember, when they push at him, he comes over him. Over who? The king of the south or the king of the Negev desert. They'll come over Israel with all of their chariots, all their horsemen, with their tanks, with their ships. And to do what? To bring down the countries, plural, Aratzot. That's what they're coming to do. And so when we see the U.S. has been targeting the Syrian military, they've been targeting the Iranian proxies, and I've stated many times myself, you know, I understand Iran being an enemy for Israel. I understand Hezbollah being an enemy of Israel, and why Israel would be more than complicit to work with the United States to take down Iran. It's something that Israel's been wanting to do for a long time. But it's becoming more and more obvious that not the Israeli people, By the way, the other day, the Israeli people, it was announced that they had raised 1.2 million shekels to be able to aid the Syrian people, the children, and those that need medical supplies and aid in the country of Syria. That's Israelis. That's people over in Israel that are willing to try to help because they care. See, it's not everybody is out to want to destroy the country of Syria. Hezbollah, no doubt, a problem for Israel's northern border. Has been, obviously. But I can't say the same for when it comes to Syria. All right? Now, talk about Gog and Magog. It's almost as if they're trying to make Russia attack. Russia, though, in an article that just came out today on atlo.info, this article right here in the Russian language is speaking about how that Russia is put together a military base inside of Syria, something that no one anticipated Russia to do, to actually build and supply, arm, and put a military base inside of Syria. And as you can see right here, the base, I'm going to pull up the map right here they're showing on it. It's only 85 kilometers to the Golan Heights, closest to Israel, 96 kilometers to Dada, which is not far from where the U.S. and British Special Forces have a contingency just across the border there, and 185 kilometers from the place where the U.S. Actually has their base at Al-Tanf. Very serious situation. Russia stepping up the ante in this war that's going on. Don't forget, though, Isaiah, the burden of Damascus. Behold, Damascus is taken away from being a city, and it shall be a ruinous heap. But you know, what's interesting is in Isaiah 17, when you get on down here, we find out that God does kind of put Israel in the crosshairs of allowing it to happen. Ah, the uproar of many peoples that roar like a roaring of the seas, and the rushing of nations that rush like the rushing of mighty waters. The nation shall rush like a rushing of many waters, but he shall rebuke them, and they shall flee far off, and shall be chased as the chaff of the mountains before the wind, and like the whirlwind dust before the storm. At evening tide, behold terror. Before the morning they are not. This is the portion of them that spoil us, and the lot of them that rob us. You know, it's just sad to see the things that are happening. And no doubt, Israel is getting involved with NATO in ways in the Middle East here that the people of Israel are not completely supportive of. Many of the people of Israel realize that Iran is a threat. We realize that Hezbollah is a threat. Not to say that they're not. Bashar al-Assad has not been a threat for us. Nowhere near as much as al-Nusra, al-Qaeda, and ISIS, or the Free Syrian Army. If they are given control of this country here, that's when Israel will truly face a threat from Syria. Then Syria will definitely become a threat without a question. And that's because the U.S. is backing those groups that could care less about the Jewish people. I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live. Erev Tov.